What's up, guys? This is Ming the Merciless 93, and we're back with another video, the fourth video in the current series that we've done. We're going to check call here on this board texture with our top pair no kicker, even though it kind of sucks, and we are going to be willing to fold this by the river if we get a lot of action. And we're going to be folding to a pot size bet on 7-8 jack with the king 3. When he's potting on the turn here, from a bluffing perspective, we're blocking some of the lower diamonds he might be double barreling, and queen 10 beats us, ace jack beats us. He VPIP pre-flop and we limped. I mean, he might have sets here, even though it's not insanely likely that he's got a set of kings or whatever. I think we can just go ahead and fold on this turn card and avoid sort of a disaster. We are out of position, and we're not going to want to see a lot of the river cards, and he's going to bet the river. It's just a spot where if you're reasonably sure that you're going to see a bet on the river, and your hand is sort of on the middling to bottom end of your range now, you probably just go ahead and fold and tighten up your range on the turn for calling. That way you can call more frequently on the river. Now, if you don't know the frequency at which you're going to see a bet on the river, and your opponent just doesn't have much river aggression whatsoever, or he hasn't shown interest in the pot in a sense, he's not like potting at every street, whatever else, he just makes like a small bet and then a half pot bet. You sort of make some executive inferences here, but for the most part, if you get to the turn and you're faced with a huge bet and you're out of position, and you have a marginal hand that's just a bluff catcher in a spot where your opponent has a plethora of value combos, and you're blocking some of the bluffs that he might have, even though there's maybe not a ton of bluffs, definitely just be folding. Definitely. Any of those spots that are close, like if you have to think about it that hard, chances are in micro and lower stakes games, you should just be erring on the side of folding because they're erring on the side of value betting. Good rule of thumb, folks. Good rule of thumb. That being said, if you're not sure, or your hand is closer to the middle of your range, or you have some outs to improve, like you also have a flush draw or a straight draw to the nuts, or you're beating more of their value bets, or their sizing is indicative of either checking back the river or not necessarily going bananas potting the river, and anything that would sort of lead you towards a bit more flexibility, then you can go ahead and call a bit more frequently on the turn. But a lot of the times, you just be doing better by not bluff catching in spots where they really have to have a lot of bluffs, especially out of position. If you're in position, it's different because then they have to bluff into you on the river, or they have to value bet into you, and your range is a bit harder to decipher because you haven't checked. You haven't taken your action yet. So position versus out of position, completely different story in those spots. I'm not saying that you should always go ahead and call on the turn, but I'm saying that if you can call on the turn in a spot where sometimes you have the best hand, sometimes you get a free showdown, and then sometimes you use the board texture to bluff them on the river, that's probably a good spot for you to call. All of those variables end up a favorable situation for you. Even though it might not be perfect and you might lose the pot, it's somewhat favorable because of all those variables. Yeah, and I think we talked about showdown versus relative showdown value versus absolute showdown value type of a deal, or at least not versus, but the relative showdown value, where the hands that your opponent are, the hands that they're going to be showing down, if they play favorably against the hand that you're trying to show down, you might consider turning that hand into a bluff if they have unprotected checking ranges, or they fold to overbets, or whatever it is. You might be able to exploit their checking ranges with hands that don't have a ton of equity. Like you're trying to show down a pair of fours in a spot where your opponent can just have second and third pair, but they never have top pair or better because they don't have those in their checking range. You can just go ahead and exploit them by throwing in multiple bets on turn or river, using bigger sizings, especially if you're in position, especially if the board texture has a somewhat favorable run out for you, and now you can have straights that they can't have. Having straights or nutted combos that you know that your opponent can't have, especially if you think that they're, even a modicum of an okay hand reader. Even if you think they have a modicum of hand reading ability, you can say to yourself, well, he knows that I can have 10 jack in the spot. And, you might play against some proficient opponents who are like, he knows that I can't have 10 jack in the spot. And then they can say to themselves, well, I know that he knows that I don't have 10 jack, which might make him more likely to bluff with some combos. Like, once you have this similar knowledge to the opponent, then there's more leveling war stuff going on. But to be honest with you, that shit just doesn't happen as often as people think. It really doesn't. It's not something that you should be overly concerned with. It's not something that you should get in the habit of doing. You should basically just be playing good, strong poker. We're just going to go ahead and 3-bet here. Might be some leveling wars here. I'd assume he just folds a lot, but he knows we're making a video. And we're definitely going to be 3-betting here with our ace-queen as well. And we get the fold from Crescent City. And if he sees this on the videos, you're like, oh, he just had aces. Probably expects me to have not much of anything at all. But yeah, I would say avoid leveling wars for the most part. Not really too much of a reason to get into them. And, just play good poker. But if you know that your opponent's thought process is one way, and he reads hands okay, but he's not capable of taking it to that next level or understanding when you can read hands and what that means, then you have something to work with. So if my opponent has kings here, we're probably not getting more than a street or two. If he has a 3, we're fucked, and we're going to get value from all of his worst aces that aren't ace 7, ace 3 anyway. So I like checking back here. And we do have a queen, so we're blocking our pocket queens combos. Check that back. And I like going for a couple of streets of value against under pairs, because mostly when he checks twice, he has under pairs here. So we're just going to go with a 48-cent bet. Could scale this down to about 36, but I think if he calls with hands that are showdown bound that are pairs, it's going to be for half pot on the turn. I think this river is kind of interesting because now we're chopping, still losing to ace 7. But I think to get a call here from like 10s or jacks, we kind of have to bet on the small side. We don't have any bluffs here. This is pure exploitation. We're just going to bet a quarter pot. Try to get a call for pocket 8s or pocket jacks. And it looks like we are going to get that little value bet in. And who knows how much we could have gotten there. But I know that we can get a quarter pot in against whatever's calling the turn, because he shouldn't really be calling the turn with too much less than king. Like, maybe he's got king high, but mostly he just has pairs. Mostly just has a pair that's trying to get the showdown, and he will showdown even if he thinks his hand is beat. They are curious, and they won't be able to get away from it. And this is an interesting spot because we're 4-way out of position. I think we mostly just check fold here on the 2-heart board. If I had a heart in this spot, I might even consider leading out to get a little fold equity, reduce the frequency of players in the pot, kick a couple guys out. And now, again, I think we just end up folding. These guys are all kind of, half-stack bros, and we're probably going to see his equity hands bet twice. If he does have 7-8, then it's free-rolling us in some sense that his combos are often going to have a heart or 2, and he's potentially just going to keep betting if he has 2 hearts, keep betting if he has a queen. There's 2 players behind us. Like, we haven't opened a straight draw, but it's one of the worst. I would much rather have that hand be a check raise, bluff heads up, or a lead, maybe 2 to 3-handed, or with a heart, maybe a lead some percent of the time. I don't mind a check call in some scenarios where we have a guy that's going to play straightforward and we can get him to fold on rivers. I mean, there are some worlds where that's okay. So here I think, Sloan has had a tendency of just calling a lot and then calling a lot of raises. We're just going to limp the button. Like, our hand is playable. We don't mind seeing a multi-way pot. We do have the button. And if we isolate here to 20 cents, we might not ever get a fold. And, it's kind of dicey with just Jack-9 offsuit, especially with the guy that's limping under the gun 1, which is not insignificant because from a positional standpoint, he should be limping a stronger range there than he is in another spot. So, you don't want to just be isolating against strong ranges or guys that are never folding with hands that don't play all that well post-flop. And yes, obviously, you'd like to get them to call pre-flop and then fold, and that's a good thing, but it doesn't always work that way. I'm just going to go with a half-pot bet. We can turn a straight draw. We have 2 overs to a pair a lot of the time. If they have a queen, they're never folding. We'll just go from there. And they check call, and they might have a queen. This guy's playing a lot of queens. We've seen him play like Queen X a ton of the time, so, he might have Queen Deuce here. But, yeah, I still think it's a bet on the button in position, limit the number of players, and go from there. I think when Goldie's thinking here, they often have a hand. This is like ace 10 or pocket 4s, some sort of ace high, some sort of small pair, maybe even a hand like 6-7 suited. It's hard to say exactly. The deuce is definitely going to be better for them, as we know they have offsuit deuce combos, and we don't. So they're not folding a deuce. They're probably not folding a 6 on this card, not folding a queen. We're blocking hands like ace-jack and ace-9. And I think this ends up just being a check back, give up against this particular opponent. And when he checks the river really quickly, I kind of think that we should be bluffing against some opponents here and not bluffing against others. I think against this guy, since he could have a queen, a deuce, a 6, and he does have some ace-x combos, we're just going to give up. But if we were going to bluff this river, having a club is definitely a card that we'd like to have. And he ends up having Jack-9 as well. That's interesting. He floats with a 3-card backdoor straight draw. Slow. Fast. And we'll just put this in the folding range with ace-4. He doesn't like that I was playing slow. He's unhappy about it. You need a little bit of patience, man. Patience is a virtue. You need patience. Just like that one dude from that one band. Just a little patience. What was that? What was that guy's name? You know, that red-haired dude from that one band. Anyway. 2-4. Not going to make the cut. Yeah, we're going to fold the 8-5 offsuit. Fold the 3-4 offsuit. Not much going on over here. We're going to fold 6-7 offsuit out of position to the half stack, bro. Eight-6, I believe we would normally raise on the button, but this dude just has 80 cents, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to push that guy around when he's just going to be shoving a lot pre-flop. A lot of the time, not really something we want to get involved in, rather. Nothing else going on at the moment. We got Sloan in a big pot over here, the old 12-cent pot with Goldie, or what is it? Ginkgo Astroglide? I don't know. We're going to fold 3-10 offsuit. He's playing Queen Deuce again. I think this is a Queen Deuce bot, guys. I kind of think this guy is a bot that just plays Queen Deuce. Queen 3. Yep. I think that's it. It makes sense, right? Yeah, we'll just go ahead and check here. Not a lot of fold equity. Just going to be a check in this spot. Not to induce a bluff, but just to see a fair turn card. A lot of the cases, we're not going to get that many streets of value. We'll just bet twice for value now against a 5x combo. The king is not a great card just because it does complete some of his hands and some of his gut shots beat us. You know, I would have definitely bet the river for value again if the king wasn't there. Not a great one. He just checks his queen, which is pretty good for us though. I think we just check on the paired board. We beat a lot of gut shots. We can induce some bluffs. I think it just plays better as a check. And same thing here. We're just going to check our ace high down. Probably just be done. The 10's not a great card, but that's okay. Half pot on the ace 5-7. And we get called here. Pretty good turn card for us for the most part. So we'll go with a second street. And do I want to isolate this guy with 80 cents? Probably not. Hopefully we're just value towning. 6-9 gets there. Jack-9 gets there. Jack-9 of hearts that floats the flop. I think we are just going to bet for value, and his calling range should be an ace a lot, so 88 cents should be good. Nice thick value bet here. He could have worse two pairs, so if he shoves, we're just going to have to call, even though we're not super excited about it. Just because guys tend to not value bet too thinly in spots like that, especially when it looks like they're getting called. But nonetheless, I mean, we have top two. In a spot where he probably doesn't have a ton of sets, probably some worse two pairs. So even though I don't expect him to have bluffs, we're doing okay against his value range in that we block 10s, we block aces. He doesn't ever have aces. He has worse ace-x, and he has some worse two pairs. Raise it up with our ace-queen. And that's going to be a value bet for us on a board where we're going to get called slightly less because we blocked the ace of diamonds. Nonetheless, we're just going to bet, call a shove. And we are not going to isolate the 90 cent bro. Good card for us. Nothing changes. We still beat all the draws. And I think the sizing here, we probably want to go with a 40 to 50 cent sizing. Because if he has a 10, we want him to call again. We do have the ace, which is blocking some of his bluffs and gut shots, and that's a card that should reduce fold equity from a 10. Obviously, a queen, we're getting it in anyway. If he has pocket fours, he's beating us anyway. If he has queen 10 or queen 9, we're losing anyway. So we're really just trying to value down a 10 here, and I think value betting the river is definitely good, given that we can beat his calling range, and we can also get a call from a 10, given that we have the ace of diamonds here. We're blocking those bluffs. So I'm pretty happy with the shove here. I'm assuming that he just had a queen with a worse kicker, like queen king or queen jack most of the time. I don't think we get a call from a 10 all the time there, just because players don't go too bananas with that, but there is a world where we do get called by a 10 in that scenario, and having the ace of diamonds certainly helps us out. There we go, raise it up. We flop top set, we flop a straight flush draw. Oh god, how bad can this go? Gonna have to get in against Texas Dolly, and I think there's enough combos here of straight draws and pairs and worse combos that we're definitely betting in a three-way pot with our top set. You know, this is not a board texture you really want to slow play too much. A little bit of more of a polarized betting range on this board anyway, especially in a three-way pot. That's a good card. We're losing to 8-9 anyway. We are definitely going to bet on the slightly bigger side. Yeah, that should be good. Fair enough. And now it's going to be a fold of the Queen 3 suited variety. We got some fusion jazz coming into the background to keep us company here between hands. Boom, 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 boom. I'm just kidding. We're going to fold the 7-3 offsuit. The old 7-3 offsuit. Ace-6, getting that value bet in against the old Texas Dolly. We got ace-3 in the big blind, offsuit variety. Checking 6-7. Checking like Tekken. Check fold on this board. No equity, no bluffs. Ace isn't a good card. He's checking like a whack job. I'm just going to check the 7 high down. So that's a spot where, again, we saw him snap check top pair before and call twice, so we can't really make an inference that, you know, we can just attack a snap check from him. It's not really a thing. We're going to check raise here with our ace-3. We got the old 2 pair. We're going to limp it in with the king-4 of the club variety. But yeah, I mean, if that was a solid read that dude was just going to have it every single time he snaps checks back that we can double barrel in, then we'd certainly exploitatively bluff. We have a check decide with our king-4. We have a bet and decide with our ace-3. And that is obviously pretty terrible. But at the same time, he can have some bluffing combos, some other 2 bet. I mean, basically, we just have to check fold the river versus a big bet. And versus this, we're just going to go ahead and value bet our king twice here. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a queen a lot here. If he's ever sizing like this with some sort of like 8-6 of diamonds or something, he's just going to get us. I mean, he just has so many queens, you know. He can have queen 10, he can have queen jack, you know, you can have queen 9. He just has tons of queens. You can have queen x of hearts, queen x of diamonds. Just they tend to underbluff, especially for that sizing. And yeah, there's just not really much of a reason. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and bet again. What sort of a sizing do we want to use? If we get called, it's going to be by an ace or a 10. So I'm good with a 24. 24 cents here against our buddy Sloan. And, I mean, we're only really losing to king jack and king queen. Those might raise pre-flop. I guess we lose to king 7. I mean, you're in a spot where it's like, God, queen jack, does he do this? Maybe. Like, he would just call if we had him beat. He would just call if we had a chop. I think he just has mostly boats in this spot and maybe queen jack. I pocket 7s makes some sense. I don't know. They don't. I'm gonna fold there. I would, even if I didn't time out, I would have folded there, guys. Essentially, he's turned our trips into a bluff catcher where they tend to underbluff and overvalue bet. I mean, overvalue bet, but, you know, they tend to underbluff, which means that their value betting range is just super strong, and I don't think they're going to end up with too many worse combos. So, like, we're calling to chop or get crushed, and we haven't seen him turn anything to a bluff. We haven't seen an aggressive action out of him yet. So I think that's a pretty good spot to fold. I think we end up having the worst hand there the majority of the time. Every now and again, you might fold the best hand, but I think over time, if you're constantly calling in spots where you're either chopping or crushed and you're relying on bluffs to make up the bulk of your equity, it's probably pretty poor in comparison to just folding a bit more often. Like I would rather fold a bit more often in those spots and occasionally be bluffed, or learn that, hey, this opponent does have bluffs and he does do weird shit and I probably shouldn't not have folded. I'd rather learn that after than to go the opposite and be like, all right, well, I'm going to call this guy. All right, oh man, I lost that pot. I mean, if you just constantly look at that spot and you look at call over a long period of time against an unknown dude at micro stakes games, or fold over a long period of time, I would assume that folding is making more money than calling, specifically because they tend to have a very value-heavy range, and against the bottom of their value range, we are essentially chopping. I don't think he's going to have, like, basically he has boats, they all beat us, queen-jack, that beats us, and then he has kings that we chop with or crush us. So it's like, versus his value range, we don't even win against any of it. We chop, or he crushes us, and there's probably very few bluffs. We haven't seen anything lately that would, let us know that, hey, this dude's probably got some bluffs in his range. So overall, I think we should just not be bluff catching like that. We're just going to call this guy 66 cents. He could definitely have worse combos for value. We're just going to take a ride on the redding here. Unfortunately for us, he has pocket queens, but I support the call here against the old 66 cent bro or whatever. I'm good with it. Congratulations to you, sir. And we're going to fold the queen 4. It's not like that. It's not like it's an amazing call, but yeah, pretty close to the bottom of my range. I mean, these guys could be shoveling anything really. You could shove ace 10, you could shove ace 7 suited. I don't know what the hell he's going to shove. But I'm not folding ace jack suited for 66 cents. That much I can tell you. What else we got over here? We got a quarter pot bet from Sloan's on the turn. And he's limping once again, probably queen deuce offsuit. Let's put this in the check range. And since he doesn't bluff, we're just going to go ahead and bet and be folding to a raise from him. But I think we can get a lot of calls from Queen X over multiple streets, but I think that they're not really going to raise us ever unless they have us beat. Not an amazing card. Queen 10, King Jack, a lot of combos get there, but nonetheless, still value bet against 4X, 10 Jack, King 10, Queen X. And it is another spot where we're probably just going to get called quite a bit, but our sizing should be relatively small here exploitatively, because we still just want to get called by a queen or a 4 or a 10. And, if we get raised here, he's probably never bluffing. Probably just has a flush, even though we have a blocker. And maybe if he shoves here, we'll just call out of curiosity, but probably not. Delicious. Delicious 3 streets. Somebody get me some ice cream and caramel, because this guy's got the nuts. God, that was dumb. Oh, yeah. So a lot of the times you flop the ace in the limp pot, and the tendency is to just check. But the fact of the matter is that if they start betting, chances are they're going to keep betting, and we're going to want to fold our hand sometime before the river, because they are going to check hands that we're beating that would otherwise call bets a lot of the time, and they're just going to start betting hands that are super attractive to them, hands that they think is strong. And that's one of the things that you have to sort of wrap your head around playing live poker, is that sometimes your opponent thinks a hand is strong that isn't. So let's say you just have like a set on a 3 flush board, and your opponent is just super capable of looking at 2 pair and saying to himself, I have 2 pair. He's not cognizant. He's not aware that this, the spades are out there and sets are out there. Maybe a straight's out there. So it's just like, you have to ask yourself, do you have a big hand, or do you think you have a big hand? Because sometimes you'll see dudes that just like play like 200 big blind pot with just top pair, or just a bottom 2 pair. You're just like, how the fuck did this happen? It's crazy. So this board texture, obviously pretty bad for us from a hand perspective. If you're playing heads up against a guy that raised an early position, pretty good for us in a range perspective. I think this is a spot where you could, decide to raise him, and especially if you had a diamond in your hand, a little bit less likely to do so without a diamond. But nonetheless, you can have 7-8, and you can have all the sets and 2 pairs, and yeah. He's just going to have abundance of overpairs and flush draws and sets. He might have 7-8 from under the gun this day and age, but nonetheless, it's a board texture that certainly favors a flat caller rather than the raiser with all the big Broadway combos. And if you start to map all that out, it's certainly going to favor the flat caller. And there's those aces. And there's that set. How does he not go broke? I didn't even see how that hand played out. That's whack. That's pretty funny. Pretty funny indeed. Pretty funny indeed. What's going on here at the moment, folks? We are going to get our ace-3 offsuit and fold this combination. Man, he's deep in the tank over there, isn't he? 740 luck dog on the Queen, King, 4, 2 heart, 1 club board texture against good old Crescent City Kid, betting into 4 people where we have a blocker to top pair. That's going to be a flush draw a lot of the time. We do have a blocker to some flush draws, but we don't block. I mean, the 5-4 suited obviously is gone. So it's kind of in that wheelhouse. He's still going to have all of his ace-10, all of his nut flush draws. 10-jack he can certainly bet. I'd assume he just shoves here with everything in his range because you have ace-jack. I mean, just good card for us. Or him, rather, as Crescent City Kid. There's that set, and he just gets roasted by the old combo draw. Not much you can do there. Ace-6 is going to be a folding combo. And it looks like it's limping around. Jonathan should be pretty happy. Is he going to go on happy tilt? I tell you what, man, you can't please motherfuckers at the poker table. They go on tilt if they're happy or if they're unhappy. I want a huge hand. I'm super happy. Play the next hand miserably. Lose a big pot. Now I'm on tilt. I'm mad. I lost a big hand. Like, what? How are you so emotionally invested in what's going on? Calm down. Calm down. We have 9 deuce offsuit in the big blind. Pow. I think we can fold to the $2.64 all-in from our good friend Sloan. Gotta go. All in on nothing. I have an 8-10 off. I believe him. I like you, Sloan. You're a man of your word. And you won the pot. that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. That's the 30-minute mark. We won $7.55. So if you are looking for... we lost 10 cents. Never mind. We won $7.45. So if you guys are out there and, you know, in the East, you're in like Eastern Europe, or you're in the sort of the slums of some city that you live in America, some white trash trailer park, and you guys want something to do other than putting mayonnaise on burgers, you can play micro stakes on Global Poker, and guys like Sloan will buy you a large fry. You know, they'll just give you a large French fries, $2.55. Thank you very much, guys, for hanging out. I am Ming the Merciless, 93. We're gonna stop playing. I'm out of here. Fuck these deuces. I have to play these? I can't sit. I can't. What is this? Too much money on the table? I've never had that problem before. Anyway, that's gonna be it for us, guys. Twitter, Emperor Ming 93. Twitch.tv/Ming the Merciless 93. If you'd like to get in touch for any reason. And don't forget, make sure you guys do that whole like 24-hour examine journal thing, whatever else, because outside from the game mechanics of poker, everything that you do as far as personal management goes really affects your bottom line. It really affects how you progress as a poker player. So best of luck to you guys out there, and I will catch you guys next month or next time, whatever, on the motherfucking flip side. Peace.